Happy Tuesday, everyone, and welcome to another thrilling episode of The Joy of Gamemastering. I'll give everybody a couple minutes to start filtering in, and we'll get to it. But hope you're having a great day out there, YouTube land, or Twitch land, wherever you might be. Not LinkedIn, because I'm not Troy and I'm not sharing this on our LinkedIn. But hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Joy of Gamemastering. Today, we're going to be talking all about how to create memorable non-player characters, NPCs, which is a very important skill to be able to develop as a GM. The NPCs are the people who are going to be populating your characters' lives, and you want to make sure that they're interesting, they're fun to engage with, they're more than just mouthpieces for what you need to talk about. All sorts of fun things. We'll just give some people some more time. Warden, good to see you. Thanks for joining us today. Talking all about NPCs. Hope you're having a great Tuesday out there. It's not bad. We love to hear that. Been a pretty good day around here too. Just getting a lot of work done. Cramming before the end of the year, trying to get a bunch of stuff finished. Yeah, we have some eyeballs starting to filter in, so thank you everybody for tuning in. Like I said, we're going to be talking all about non-player characters, how to develop interesting ones, how to really dive into making people that your player characters want to hang out with. Today I'm going to be speaking mostly about the side characters in the players' lives, not their villains, not antagonists of the story. Hello, Warren Music, hello, Rebel Mood, hello, Doc Boyd. Rebel Moose says NPCs, or everyone sounds like me, except for a few people who are major characters. Yeah, that's tough, especially if you're not good at accents or voices. Having everybody sound like you can be really tough. And Doc Void's here. You've arrived on time or thereabouts. Yeah, this is pretty much on time. We're still getting some faces popping in, so working on vamping a little bit till people show up. But yeah, we're talking about NPCs, how to create memorable ones, how to make those people that your PCs will just come back to time and time again. Or people who show up for one brief moment, but you really want them to stick out. I was just working on one of these personally. We're working on editing together the Titan City podcast stuff. And we had an episode with an exotic weapons dealer named Easy Pete, who was just a blast to play because he was a guy who'd been struck by lightning too many times. It was just a little twitchy, a little paranoid, a little Malkavian, to borrow a vampire term. But I really liked him because he had an interesting location the players had to go. He had an interesting role to play in the story, and he had a lot of interesting just quirks. Yeah, Doc Void, I'm putting together a Titan City podcast for some of our actual plays. Some 30-minute episodes that are just audio. It's not out yet. It'll be debuting pretty soon. Tempo mentions one of the first pitfalls of making an interesting NPC, and that's making sure the NPCs don't end up overshadowing or making the PCs redundant. Yes. There is there's sort of different levels of NPC, right? Simon Wentworth says, Doc Void, I think you mean then abouts, am I right? Doc Void, time is it's a powerful thing. I wish I had more of it all the time, but we do what we can. So, yeah, just talking about sort of levels of NPC. The one that Tempo is referring to can be sort of the DMPC, a benefactor, a mentor, some super powerful other superheroes in the setting who can show up and solve everybody's problems. That's definitely one of the things you want to avoid. And it's a kind of NPC I don't like to showcase very often. It's a thin line to walk because some people like having more powerful heroes around because it makes the setting feel lived in. But if they're there to solve all the problems, what's the point of the player characters? And you have to remember when you're creating NPCs that you are framing these characters around the player characters because they are, in fact, the protagonists, the main characters of the story we're going to be telling. So we talk about benefactors / mentors. Those are the ones that can definitely be rife for abuse, but they're also characters who offer a lot of interesting opportunities. You can use these NPCs occasionally as a get-out-of-jail-free card. Don't overuse that tool, but sometimes it could be fun for the players to get in over their heads and know that they have somebody in their back pocket who can help them. That could definitely help with players who feel like failure is a cataclysmic end state of the game. But finding ways to alleviate that is important. Paul says, also more powerful characters have stuff to do. They're not the PC's nursemaids. Yep, definitely. And it's important to know, why do I need a mentor character? Why do I need a benefactor? Why is there a super powerful hero around? And what am I trying to say with that character? You know, I think about great mentors like Obi-Wan Kenobi, who does have a big duel with Obi-Wan in the first movie, or has a big duel with Darth Vader in the first movie, but doesn't overshadow the heroes. He's got that big fight, but he loses that fight. So that's a way to build stakes. It's a way to show how dangerous a villain is if one of their super powerful allies gets defeated. Bruce Wayne in Batman Beyond is another great example of a benefactor / mentor character. And you even get a cool episode in Batman Beyond where Bruce gets to act at his prime a little bit alongside Terry, and Terry gets to see sort of what Batman was like before he was a million years old. So, you want to have a discussion with the players using this character. They're trying to teach a lesson. They're trying to bestow certain values to them. And it's a good way to show what you think a successful character looks like in your setting with your players. Doc Voight says, I don't know how you juggle everything: line development for M&M, writing a novel, writing my own games, running convention games, USP. Adderall is a good prescription to get, is my advice. Yeah, there was the episode with Ink and Bruce putting on his old battle suit, and another one where he got duped into using the Lazarus Pit. Yeah, I was thinking of the Lazarus Pit episode. I forgot about the Ink and Bruce episode. But both of those characters, Obi-Wan and Bruce Wayne, in both of their respective areas, they give insight to the heroes. They also sort of provide them with resources. Obi-Wan gives Luke the lightsaber, and he gives him a little bit of force training. And he gives him sort of the first steps on the road to his journey, but he doesn't walk the whole journey for him. That's the important thing when you're considering a benefactor character like that. One of our big adventure paths, Emerald City Knights, uses Maxwell Mars as a benefactor NPC, as a possible patron for our heroes, to give them things like a headquarters, to give them vehicles, to give them media training, and to handle all that sort of, I'm a new superhero, I don't know what to do with my powers stuff. But he comes with the added caveat of, can we trust him? It's often the heroes can find out that he has a history that is not good. And it's something to engage with. So when you're creating these benefactors, you want to ask, what are they for? Or am I trying to give the heroes access to tools? Am I trying to give them access to values am I trying to give them access to all sorts of fun things? And how can I prevent them from overshadowing the other heroes? I ran a game using Daedalus in this role, where he wasn't explicitly a benefactor, but he was an established hero who was judging what the heroes were doing. So he could be an antagonist, he could be an asset. It all depended on how the heroes, worked around him. DP says, give them an HQ, give them a vehicle, give them cause for concern, give them reason for doubt, give them suspicion. Yeah. That's the cool thing about Max Mars. So, practice and mentors. Don't let them overshadow heroes. Don't let them do everything for the heroes. But give them, give a reason for why that character is there. And know that they don't always have to be just some old dude. They can be all sorts of different people. Paul says, I had an experienced hero act as patron for a group of teen heroes, but he made it clear one of the reasons I sought you out is because of your resourcefulness. Be resourceful. Describe things in detail so they know what you're going to take away from them later. I mean, it could be like that sometimes, Dog Void. Yeah, Devious mentions the best benefactors and mentors have flaws and mysterious agendas. And like I say for lots of things, borrow liberally from stories that you enjoy. Why do these mentor figures work out? One of my favorite mentor stories is The Hobbit, where Gandalf is sort of the mentor for the party, but he just disappears through most of the story. Goes off and he has more important things to do, but he checks in every now and then, and he's able to get them out of sticky situations sometimes. But he also imparts wisdom, which is really nice. He's there to answer the questions when things look their weakest, when things look the worst. He has some wisdom to share, which I think that's the hardest part about writing mentor NPCs. Doc Boyd says, I have a mysterious benefactor who's brought my PCs together with promises, if you help me, I'll help you. Yep. And Stormer, good to see you. Stormer? Sorry I'm late, you may have already said this, but tying select abilities to finding a mentor who could probably train you really does give more value to power-ups. Yeah, that's really cool too. Yeah, I like, and that's an idea from older role-playing games that doesn't get as much play anymore, where you have to actually train to level up or to learn new skills. So having to find a mentor who can actually do that for you gives an incentive to the players to seek this person out, and then makes it feel like they're not there to solve everybody's problems, but they have a mechanical role to play in the story to make the players better. You want to avoid things like the NPCs who are super powerful and solve everybody's problems all the time, and you want to use them, you want to sprinkle them lightly throughout the story. It can help to show an awesome scene where the mentor gets to cut loose a little bit, just to show the heroes this is what you might be one day, or this is why this person is your benefactor. But don't ever feel like you have to do that. So benefactors and mentors. Sidekicks are another really big NPC type that I like to employ. Not necessarily like a Robin sidekick to Batman, but a Jimmy Olsen type where it's the hero's best friend, or Ned from the MCU Spider-Man stuff, where he's the guy in the chair, but he's also Peter's best friend. Sort of a friend character who's in the background, who is there to help create this sort of, this is what the hero is like as a person rather than as a character, as a set of abilities. I really liked Crucible had a sidekick who was a really good, who wound up becoming a hero in his own right. Tempo says, how about a mentor who generally cares about and has the PC's interest at heart? Having one who manipulates or backstabs them is getting both more common and kind of annoying. Yeah, I think, and I tell this to a lot of GMs, is you only get a couple of backstabs in your GMing career before it just derails things. You can only burn your players' trust so many times before it becomes a problem for future stories. And I may have run into this at some point, because I've had I had a police officer NPC who showed up and offered the heroes lemon squares, just as a fun reference to Scream 4, because I think that's funny. And they were like, we want absolutely nothing to do with whatever this lady is cooking and making for us. She is clearly trying to poison us. Which they were probably just messing with me, but it sticks in your mind when the players don't trust what you put in front of them. You've got to be really intentional when you do things like that. And it's good to subvert expectations, but not at the expense of telling a good story. Just because you've subverted an expectation doesn't mean the story is better for it. Devious says, I like having what seems like a benefactor whose agenda may turn them against the party down the line, but I had a situation where the heroes found out the guy's evil agenda and all willingly did a heel turn. I was stymied. Oh no! They all decided to be villains alongside their mentor because they like the mentor so much? Is that what happened, Devious? Now, what are some pitfalls you guys run into with NPCs? Especially, I've got to represent a lot of them all at once. Yeah, Paul, if you're going to make an unreliable NPC, you can't just make them backstab out of reflex. Make them do it for a reason. Give them objectives. Yeah. And know that if that NPC continues being a part of the story, they're on the outs with the party forever, basically. I used Sophie in our Netherworld game, who was a love interest for Bowman, who happened to also be one of Eldritch's former apprentices, who he decided wasn't worthy of becoming the Master Mage, and he basically cut her off from magic. And she vowed revenge on him, and she used the party to track him down and kill Eldritch in front of them. And to this day, we have a Sophie is the Worst t-shirt available on our website. I picture getting into that situation, hearing a record scratch in my mind. Yeah, I think if you are going to use a backstabbing, it is more effective if the heroes know that there's a chance that a backstab can happen. So the question doesn't become, are they going to backstab me? The question is, can I help them? Can I prevent them from doing that? Can I help reform them? And then if it does wind up being something that leads to a backstabbing or leads to a misunderstanding where it looks like that NPC did a backstabbing, the drama is more nuanced there. Tempo says, if you have an evil mentor like Gendo from Neon Genesis, Evangelion, or Auto Apocalypse from Honkai Impact 3rd, have them initially be bad bosses before turning against the PCs in an organic way. Yeah, I truly believe that a backstabbing can't come out of nowhere. I know that's usually how it works in real life, but to be narratively satisfying, it has to be something that the PCs could have seen coming. Especially if you're playing a game that has a system that rewards adhering to genre conventions like hero points in Mutants and Masterminds or Bennies and Savage Worlds, where you can... Doc Void, oh, my PCs are a bunch of untrusting buttheads to begin with. I forget swearing okay in this chat, I prefer not. I think it's fine in chat. I just can't say them out loud. Afterwards, the PCs can get new mentors that are generally more nicer and can be trusted this time. Yeah. And just knowing that there are going to be, like Doc Voigt says, some of your PCs are going to be untrusting to begin with. And that is, that could be trauma from past GMs, that could be completely out of your control. I thoroughly frustrated players, says Devious, by making them learn they were working for a Dr. Doom type who was giving them info about an Ultron type. Yeah, and that can be cool with dramatic irony, too. I've played a couple of games where there's a multiverse swap that goes on, and the Justice League goes to the Marvel Universe, and vice versa. And I was playing Superman in Dr. Doom's castle, and we had a discussion with Doom about what had happened. And it was interesting as a player having to navigate what I know about Dr. Doom versus what Superman knows about Dr. Doom. Simon says, I borrowed the same trick that used in the Payday series for a backstabber. They didn't make it the most obvious candidate, but still had to make sense when the gang found out who it was. Yeah. DV says, when asked why, he said, simple. He's trying to destroy what I will one day rightfully rule. Yeah. So benefactors, sidekicks. Who else? Weirdos. Weirdos are one of my favorite NPCs to play. Just sort of an interesting, like, flavor background character who pops in and out every now and then. Like Easy Pete I was talking about is a paranoid arms dealer who sells magic devices out of the back of his china shop. And he's interesting because he's got fun tics, he's fun to roleplay, and he says things that are just off the cuff and just unhinged, so that the players are like, I don't know what this guy's on about, but I like him. Rebel Moose says, if I'm going to have an NPC backstab the PCs, it's either very dramatic or very telegraphed. A cop named Nak Stabba is definitely untrustworthy, but friendly my friend is unexpected. Yeah. You were my friend. I know. Was your friend. Paul says, I love an NPC that grounds the hero. That's a good sidekick role. When your PCs are only ever interacting with other costumed people, it's easy for them to get out of touch with the ordinary world. Yeah. Yeah, and finding those people can be a lot of fun. And it humanizes your player characters. I played characters who had ex-wives that they were trying to be amicable with, and that led to interesting drama where she was moving on, and I still had to protect them on their first date as a superhero, or little instances like that. And involving your players in the creation of these people can be a ton of fun too. It's their lives. You want to make sure that NPC is somebody who they're going to want to interact with. So getting them involved in the creation of that is perfect. You don't have to create everybody in the world. DV says, before you have said on NPC should never be the hero of the piece, but that is for the players. Yes. That NPC should either be an exposition, quest giver, mystery, or an obstacle, I believe. Yep. Yeah, and I think adding another little caveat to that where they can be enrichment. So they either deepen the flavor of the player characters, or they add a bit of flavor to the setting just to showcase. I guess that sort of all falls under exposition as well. Yeah, Invincible definitely touches on this topic. Yeah, Invincible's really good at that. Yeah, Invincible shows how Mark is getting more involved in the superhero world while losing touch with humanity. Yeah, it definitely is. The X-Men get this badly, where their whole lives end up being entirely set in some of all mutants' gated community. Yeah. That's sort of built into the X-Men in a lot of ways, because a lot of the X-Men get shipped off to Xavier's to be sent away from their human life. So having instances of intersection for that it's always interesting, but it doesn't happen as much as I think it should. Yeah, NPC as set dressing is really good. NPC is irritant. Yeah, I mean, I think that sort of was on the obstacle category, where especially NPCs like J. Jonah Jameson or Cat Grant can be a lot of this for Superman. An NPC who is not part of the villain's scheme, but still finds ways to make the players' lives difficult. And yet human bigots still keep attacking them. Isn't it crazy? Paul says, I love a foil, but can it be overplayed with players? Yeah. Yeah, especially, it's really hard in gaming too, because having two characters who have the same powers makes the fight not as interesting, in my opinion. I mean, that's true for just in general, but it's a little easier to stomach when you're not having to roll all the same things all the time. So NPC is irritant. That's somebody who stands in the way of the player's goals. Not necessarily as an antagonist, but even has their own complete agenda separate from any villains or anything like that. They just have this nagging real life, I'm going to get your promotion, or because you're absent from work all the time trying to be a superhero, I'm gonna move up the ranks. Yeah, I think irritant is an obstacle for their personal life rather than an obstacle for their superhero life. Although it can be both, I guess, because you wind up with characters who are trying to turn people against the heroes, sort of like Harvey Bullock for Batman, or J. Jonah Jameson famously for Spider-Man, where they're never going to get into a punch-out fight with the heroes, but they are going to be somebody who can be really irritating. Devious mentions a nosy reporter digging into their secret identity, or the gossip columnist just making stuff up about them. Yeah, it's nice to have antagonists who come into the heroes from different angles. It's true, because it makes them feel more like real people, and it makes the game feel more lived in. This is all stuff that's really important for campaign play as opposed to one-shot play, because these are the way to make NPCs more memorable is to give them these sort of ongoing relationships with the heroes. You know, having an irritant who shows up, you know, not every episode, but every couple of adventures, just to add a wrinkle. They also lead to great opportunities for something called a jumped up nobody, is what we call them here in M&M, where there can be that loser character, or there can be that sidekick who suddenly gets powers and becomes the central antagonist of an adventure. Not necessarily in an evil way, but they have powers and they can't control them, or they finally have the ability to really take a shot at the person they've been trying to take down this whole time. Like, imagine if Jonah Jameson got superpowers and got the chance to go fight Spider-Man instead of just talking shit about him on the internet. Or in the paper, if you're still in physical media. Yeah, I love a jumped up nobody too, especially if it's somebody the heroes have a really good relationship with. Where they suddenly are like, I can finally help the way I want to, and all they do is get in the way. Doc Void's been working on building a jumped up nobody for my campaign. That's awesome. What's their relationship with the players right now? With the player characters right now? Also, early Jameson was directly involved with creating several foes, the Scorpion and the Spider Slayer. I forgot he was involved in making Scorpion. Yeah, that's true. Had not considered them making someone directly related to the characters. That's an even better idea. Yeah, and I mean, that's... The Incredibles did a great job of that, where the main villain in the first Incredibles movie is somebody who Mr. Incredible just dismissed and forgot about. And that suddenly became Syndrome's full motivation for being alive, was to destroy supers. So, you know, there are lots of opportunities for things like that. Although J. Jonah Jameson did fund Max Gargan becoming the Scorpion, that was to create a legal hero, but Gargan went crazy. That makes sense. I'm a big fan of a villain whose job is to create other villains, like comics Justin Hammer. Yeah. Now, what I like about Justin Hammer is he's also a person in Tony Stark's regular life outside of being Iron Man. Robo Moose, I think you mentioned it already, but having the players write up an NPC or two in their backstories, best friend, sibling, maybe even a villain or rival, is also go big an investment. Yeah. And investment is the key to memorable NPCs. You know, the PCs run into this character and they glom onto them. They like this NPC, and they sort of adopt that character into their party. Or they're involved in the direct creation of that NPC, character creation. And what's funny, as a GM, when somebody hands you a list of NPCs, that is, that's information that you can use to fill out your world, but it's also sort of a glimpse into what your players are looking to for the game that you're playing, what they're interested in engaging with, what sort of stories they want to tell. Technically, one of my PCs is the Tinkerer. Oh no. Yeah, anytime I don't get to do this very often, but anytime I get to be a player character in a campaign, I love to hand the GM a few NPCs. Like, don't overwhelm them, but just say, hey, these are the people who are most important in my life, in my character's life, and I would like to engage with them in some capacity. It also dovetails very nicely into a technique I use often in ongoing campaigns where I ask one of the other players to play some of the NPCs. Like, I dedicate, discuss with the players up front, but this particular NPC is going to be acted by this player instead of by me, and have that discussion up front and all that fun stuff. Crucible is great. Crucible is my id. It's just my super ego on display. What if Peter Parker was Magneto was my question when I set out to be him, when I set out to write him. Guy repairs your rocket pack or engineers supervillain layers or access to public heroes publicity manager. Yeah, and it's cool to come up with, speaking of like PR managers or supervillain, like your engineers or whatever, it's cool to have a group discussion about that too. Like, these are going to be shared NPCs for the party. Do you guys want to create them together? Do you want me to create them? What would make them more interesting for you guys to sort of interface with? And coming up with a sort of upfront description and idea of the character as a group, and then the GM taking those characters and maybe coming up with a couple of secrets or a couple of interesting agendas that the players don't know about, but they've had a hand in creating this character, so they already feel part of the creation process. I love games that do collaborative world building. Both from a system perspective and from an individual campaign perspective. That's why I'm a big fan of collaborative world building. Tempo says a robot villain from the Teen Titans show disrespected his mechanics so much that the latter abandoned the former who lost to Cyborg. Oof. Paul says in one game we ended up accumulating this whole secondary layer of PL4 to 6 level characters who end up acting as a support crew for the team. I've actually run one shots involving the NPCs as the PCs while the heroes were off doing something cliffhangery as a fun way to give them a chance to be more invested in the characters and to see sort of what's going on at the ground level when they're away from home. And because, nobody likes to be a damsel. It's cool to see your NPC friends working together to escape instead of waiting around for your hero to show up and rescue them. Simon says, and they're a good one for villains to kidnap. They have specific skills or knowledge you don't, and you'll be in trouble very quickly if you can't save them. Yeah. I love a damsel in distress, like Jimmy Olsen or Daedalus, or Lois Lane gets that a lot of the time, Mary Jane. And I think it's important when you're dealing with a character who does get abducted a lot of the time, they have to provide value to the heroes outside of the irritation they provide by being abducted all the time. So they have some sort of skill that is useful to the group. They have knowledge that's useful to the group. There's a personality connection between them and one of the other characters. Coming up with fun and interesting reasons for the heroes to keep rescuing that person and not just putting them on like a moon base or something to keep them safe. Tempo mentions, how about the NPCs saving the PCs in turn out of gratitude for their heroism? That could be really cool. I love any sort of story that turns the relationship on its head, and maybe the PC's powers aren't working as well, but the NPC has picked up those powers. Generally, my only advice for that situation is to make sure that the players are still the people playing the powered people. So if they swap, give the character sheet of the NPC over to the hero and let them do the rescuing part. Paul says, Jimmy is one of my favorite characters. The fact that he's a normal character who continually interacts with superhero weirdness is just delightful. Yeah, I love Jimmy so much. Even some of the crazy stuff that happened to Jimmy during the Silver Age, where Superman was like, I brought a pitcher of water and you and Aquaman to the desert, and one of you is going to drown. Or dehydrate and die. Yeah, Devious says, challenge expectations, but the main hero should nearly always be the ones that save the day. Yeah. And, discuss with your players before a change like that happens. They'll be on board more often than not. If you want to do something to show off a different facet of the world, or you want to bring that new element in. What other sort of NPCs are we doing in here? Dominic says, I've brought it up from time to time, but I've had great success with having fellow players pick up some of these player favorite NPCs. Yeah. NPCs also make excellent player characters for people who are only there for a session or two. If you have a drop-in guest star or something like that, it's a great opportunity to have somebody come in. I was running a Curse of Strahd game where the players had the Irina with them the whole time, and we had a person join the group, and I said, you've never played D&D before, but I have this NPC who's part of the group. If you want to play them for a session to see if you like it, give that a shot. And then she wound up loving the game, and she was like, I just want to keep playing Irina because she's cool. So that was fun. Evil thought, what if Lois Lane got cancer from the time she had to rescue Soups by getting the kryptonite out of the way? Yeah, that kryptonite gives humans cancer thing comes up a lot. It's usually Lex, though. Hey, Gray Matter, good to see you. Jay Gray. Paul says, I love the idea of spinning that out of a failure. The heroes get captured in next session. The players had to play NPCs and step up. They saved us so often we gotta return the favor. That's wonderful. Yeah, I love things like that. Logic, of course, says they also make excellent replacement characters if something happens to one of the PCs, so the player wants that. Yeah. Jay Gray says, most of my NPCs are memorable from what my players say. I'm not certain if it's any one single thing, though. No, and it's not. That's the real synthesis of what we're talking about, is there are so many reasons people like non-player characters. And it's important to know, when you're introducing a non-player character, how much effort do you want to put into it? How often they're going to show up? And understand that whatever NPC you present that you were hoping not to put a lot of effort in, that's the one they're going to latch onto, because that's just naturally how they are. Simon says it usually takes a little bit longer than that. It affects Kryptonians, yeah, and not as immediately dangerous. Yeah, we did have an M&M Monday episode talking about situations like, meanwhile, at the Hall of Doom, or back at the League, all that fun stuff. Yeah, but using NPCs, putting a proportionate amount of effort into NPCs, that's the important thing. Is if it's just a vendor that they're going to stop by to buy some stuff from, they don't have to have a whole life story. They don't even have to have a name. You can just sort of hand wave. You go to the stores, you buy a bunch of stuff, then we come back. Gray Man says, I think in my latest conclusory campaign 2 weeks ago ended with 36 teams. Players interacted with 12 NPCs. That's awesome. Warden Maximus, the house from the superhero base are doing a lot while the superheroes are off saving the world, who's defending against thieves and hackers while they're gone. And Dominic boils it down to, the goal for NPCs is for your players to either love to hate them, or hate to love them. Yeah, and knowing that your players are going to adopt something weird at some point, and that's okay. Whether it's a goblin or a kobold or a, I'm a sucker for including a pet in a game. Guardians of Haven, there was a toaster that was sentient that they fell in love with named Toasty, who was just their buddy for the whole game until it turns out he's actually the villain of the whole story. Because he was a berserker tech hiding as a toaster. One true fae, 2 tribes people, the Winter Court Council, a doctor, and a goblin. Big shout out to Dom for those amazing Tem6 terrific tokens. Yeah, those are some really great tokens. I finally got to see them. Troy shared them with us. I like them a lot. I think they're really, really great. Where cleans Doomba? Doomba was too good of a concept. He had to become a player character, but that's fine. Jay says, I think while I do tons of other things, I think that's why they're memorable. I focus attention on so few. Yeah. And much like any other story, the players are going to pay attention where you shine the light. So if you focus the attention on a specific person, more often than not, that is who they'll focus on. Occasionally you'll run into players who decide to focus on anything else just to be spiteful, is what it seems like. But if you've got good, solid players, they'll look in the direction you point them, and then they can see the fully fleshed out NPCs you're bringing along. Tempo says, in Marvel, imagine Captain Universe empowering a random person to help save the day. Something like that means a temporarily superpowered NPC can assist the PCs. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and because they're inexperienced, that temporarily superpowered NPC can help, but they can also become quite a problem. Dominic says, I like the Star Trek Adventures approach with supporting characters. I don't think I'm familiar. What's their approach? Oh no, I'm wearing a red shirt. I don't know if we should be talking about Star Trek. In a game of Traveler, I played a series of NPCs. Basically, I'd be the guy the A-Team was helping, or the guy who owned the amusement park that Mr. Ink was investigating. That's hilarious. Lieutenant Barkley. That's a fun bit of meta gameplay too. If you decide, I'm not good at voices, I'm just going to make it so that every person they interact with in this particular adventure is just me with a different hat on. That can be a really fun plot point to bring in, that the players are like, why is there only one person in this town? So they go to the gas station, and the gas station attendant is you with a beard, and they go to the general store, and the person behind the bar is you with a hat, and then they go to the saloon, and it's you with overalls. Like, Captain Universe possesses a cat to beat up the wrecking crew. Mm-hmm. Jay Gray says, I think that my general GMing style is massive on prep for small scope. One to four players at most and very few NPCs. That's a really great scope to work with. Dealing with a small group of NPCs makes life a lot easier. And it's great to have a micro scale game world to play with, because you can really flesh out everything that's in it and make everything feel really lived in and make it all relevant. Where if you're doing on a macro scale, and there's nothing wrong either way, but doing on a macro scale, you're looking at, okay, this adventure's in this city, and then the next adventure will be in the next city. You don't want to spend the time building every NPC that they're going to run into in every one of those cities. Dominic says, you make these sort of lesser player characters that start with none of the special abilities or higher stats the players do, but they can be picked up by players whose character isn't in the scene. Oh, that's really cool. So if the captain isn't on the away team, they can play Enz and Ricky. The more times they show up in games, they slowly gain these abilities until they're basically a lesser player character. That's really cool. That's sort of a troop style play, which is something I'm a big fan of, where the player characters have more than one character and they sort of decide which character is going on which adventure. If I ever have a second of free time, I want to run a Justice League Unlimited game like that, where it's a full-on, or a Legion of Superheroes, or something where it's a full-on hundreds of superheroes all on the same team, and the players decide who they want to play in a given scenario. That's how Chief O'Brien would work. He would be a supportive character, or they would have supporting character. I see you've met my brother. Yeah, I'm Ricky. This is Sticky. That's Dicky. That's Nicky. And our brother Mo. All How's that joke go? This is eeny, meeny, miny, and this is our brother Bob, because our parents didn't want no mo. Yeah, sorry there's not as much to talk about with this topic. I figured there'd be more to talk about, but it's really sort of a nebulous thing. Paul says you can also ensign Ricky with NPCs. If the characters interact with Astro Labs, they'll always interact with Dr. Catalina Garcia, and gradually she'll accumulate a personality and character. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of they always meet the same person there. Hey, Ken, it's good to see you. Please check out the VOD. Leave a like, subscribe, do the fun YouTube stuff. I'll shill now. Happy to be here. It's been a while. I hope you're very well, my friend. Hope you're having a good holiday season. I can't believe it's going to be Christmas in 8 days. Jay Gray says the last campaign ended with a trip on a trip to Seattle University District, Yakima, and Mount Rainier. Travel was done within the hedge, which had a central location at the Goblin Market. So I was able to ensure the NPCs were targeted for story beats at each location and represent their factions and locations. Yeah. And having faction-based NPCs, I think, is a really strong tool to use because it gives a face to whatever organization the players are interacting with, and it gives them somebody to have sort of a personal relationship with, despite that being sort of a company versus human concept. Devious says you could also have players make their main PL10 characters and then a support NPC they can play as well that fit certain roles, pilot, computer expert. Mm-hmm. And our teen hero says Paul fought some Aegis agents and the one guy left ended up surrendering after the top half of his battle armor was vaporized. You hate to see that. And I'm sure that Aegis agent is the one who keeps showing up anytime that the heroes do anything. It's Robot Pants. Not Robot Pants, it's worse than Taserface. Magicka is quite an oldie, but it had a true style where players control not just the main Magi, but also the companions and Grogs as well. Yeah, I think that's such a cool. I think that's such a cool campaign concept. Yeah, it's just not something I've ever sat down and actually taken the time to do. I think it'd be cool for a Civil War style game too, sort of borrowing that idea from Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2. Jay Gray says, I use NPCs as the avenue for accruing faction credits, which are a meta currency they can use to attain something from the faction. Oh, that's awesome. Ken says, tell me if this has been asked already, but what if there's an NPC that you made integral to the story, but your PCs hate in a non-silly way? That's not, that's a good question. We haven't talked about it yet. It's tough when your players hate an NPC in a non-silly way. Like, loving to hate is fine, or hating to love is fine, but they just don't click with it. There's just no chemistry. They didn't react to the NPC the way that you thought they were going to. That can be really tough. There are some things that you can try to do. You can have them basically defeat that NPC if that is somebody if that's the sort of relationship that they're supposed to have. Have them defeat that NPC, and then another one gets sent in, and you can sort of try again with a more powerful, more interesting representative from whatever faction they're part of. You can find ways to humanize that character. Maybe they made a bad first impression, but then you present a situation that they're in that sort of gives them a different angle on that character. Maybe they stumble upon that character in a karaoke bar doing a bad rendition of Don't Stop Believing, and all of a sudden now it's not just this guy we hate, it's karaoke guy. Or, yeah. But there's, when Ken says in a non-silly way, what I'm imagining is present the NPC and the players just shut down. They're not interested in engaging with the character, they don't want anything to do with them, they're not willing to go on quests for them, and it's just... Yeah, because I feel like hate leads to exciting gameplay, but I think this is more like indifference almost, or just a non-interest in engaging that character. Yeah, or they're annoyed by them, which can happen. I mean, sometimes you could present a character and it's just a dud with your players. It's not anything you did wrong. It's just somebody that they don't have an interest in. But yeah, replacing them either with a recast or something happens and they're just sort of swapped out of the players' lives and another similar NPC is present into that position. Jay Gray mentions that he has a form that can give players post-session that they can give info on that detail. Yeah, and I think that's another, again, a lot of GMing advice boils down to this. Talk to your players about it. What is it about that character that they don't like? Are they just an archetype that they don't enjoy? Do they feel like there's just not anything interesting about them? And then either reintroduce that character and give some nuance, give some wrinkle to them, or recast them. So they get recalled, they move out, and another character fills that sort of niche, whatever part of the story they're trying to fill, whether it's the liaison to an agency or it is a potential sidekick, or find something with them that's interesting. I love a jumped up nobody for that as well, where this person is just, they don't care about them, and then all of a sudden they get superpowers, and then they become a problem for one adventure. Tempo says, imagine a Kender NPC from Dragonlance who constantly steals from the party. Either they kill him or eventually gets eaten by a black dragon. Such satisfaction. Yeah. Jake Gray says, I've had one NPC that was hated and found out a lot about it. Based on the feedback, I figured out the most cathartic way to handle it was to lean into their frustrations by letting them have their frustration. Be present by the character's action. Yeah, and it could be hard because, if you're anything like me, you tend to put some of yourself into a lot of your NPCs, and this allowed the players to lead a coup. That makes sense. That's cool. Yeah, it gave them an opportunity to sort of okay, now we know what this NPC is, how we want to engage with them. Or he accidentally steals the wrong thing and ends up having to come to the PCs and grovel for help. Yeah, I hope that helps, Ken. Let me know if there's other techniques that you want to talk about. When all else fails, we could also give them a cute pet because everybody loves a cute pet, and they'll be happy to talk to Lieutenant No Personality if he's got a cool dog, or a cool lizard, or a goblin, or something. Jay Gray says, I'm annoying AF, so I love when people are honest with me. Yeah, and that's the right attitude to have. I say this all the time for GMs, but it's not you versus the players. It's you and the players versus the problem. And finding out what the problem is, that is that's the key. Just like any good working relationship, it's not you guys against each other. And be open to constructive criticism. I think that's really one of the key ingredients of being a good GM, is being open to the idea that you don't know everything. You don't 100% know what you're doing all the time, but that's okay. Dog Void says, I have 3 different shirts that say, sorry, I'm awkward, sorry. And Paul says, characters can always change and evolve, or fall into a tub of radioactive goo and turn into rampaging lizard hybrids. So if a single character is a pain, that's something that can easily be cathartic to push into rhythm, especially for me. Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing. I mean, NPCs, they're a very important aspect of every game, and when you start putting a little bit of personality into them and start putting yourself into them, you have the chance to really sort of connect with their players and to give, like we mentioned earlier, a fun obstacle, a fun bit of set dressing, a fun way to deliver exposition, or a fun way to give resources to the players. By which I mean I sympathize, Jay Gray. I'm awkward, deal with it. But yeah, we've got a couple minutes left, so If you have any questions, any other themes, anything like that we want to chat about, go ahead and pop them into the comments. I'll go look and see what else we've got going on for the rest of the month. Which we are fast approaching our holiday break. We go dark for a couple weeks at the end of the year. My wife's upstairs singing, I believe, a thing called Love. Troy, where did you put the calendar? There we go. Found the calendar. Cool. Your pain is tragedy. Other people's pain is comedy. It's called Schadenfreude. There's a whole story about that. My partner will poke/pinch me if I'm spiraling. I know that feeling. Yeah. Things that are going on tomorrow. We do have our dev chat for Mutants and Masterminds Monday, and there's something really exciting I'm going to be talking about at that. So don't miss that this Wednesday. It's actually going to be at 7 p.m. EST, 4 p.m. Pacific tomorrow instead of the usual 8. Friday or Thursday, there is a Thursday age, it looks like. Yeah, there's a Thursday. I don't know what the topic is. But then Friday, we have our workshop, which is where we're working on building a role-playing product for Mutants and Masterminds. We're building a small town superhero setting called Pinewood, Ohio. That is really cool. It involves something called the Anomaly. If you want to know more about that, come join us at the workshop. It's a ton of fun. I've been going through and editing a lot of people's work that they've submitted, and I'm going to be going over some of my developer notes in real time, so that'll be fun. And then next Monday, we have our Mutants and Masterminds Holiday Extravaganza, where we're going to be playing Jackbox and doing fun stuff on stream. Dominic says, here's an interesting question, handling NPCs that are higher power level than the players. Yes, we talked about that a little bit at the beginning, where having a mentor character or a benefactor or somebody who is more powerful that the heroes interact with on a regular basis, and making sure that that character is not doing all of the world saving, all the problem solving. They're not the people leading the players to water and then making them drink. They're the ones who they've got other more important things to do, or they are, they might have just a disagreement with the players based on different philosophies. I did that with my Heroes Incorporated game, where the heroes used an app to be superheroes, and Daedalus didn't like that, and Daedalus was much more powerful than them, so he was sort of somebody they had to tiptoe around. It was actually my first Earth Prime game. But yeah, finding ways and knowing that just because a character or an NPC higher power level doesn't mean they're going to solve all the heroes' problems, and they can actually be a problem for the heroes in their own right. Doc Void says, who's my favorite NPC I've interacted with as a player? Oh, man. I think. This is sort of a niche example, but I had a really good time in a game, and I guess it's not a great NPC, but I played a game where the player characters were all Harrison Ford characters. So I was Han Solo, there was Indiana Jones and the President, and Deckard from Blade Runner, and we were all facing off against Christopher Lee characters. And the guy who was he played Dracula so well, it was great. Yeah, it was a fun game. But I like. Oh, you know what? I do have an answer for this. Freaking. In the game I play most regularly as Crucible, his stepmother is in college with him, and every interaction that they have is hilarious and awkward and horrible for me, and it makes me laugh every time. Tempo says, how about a hated NPC who was eaten by a giant fly, dropped into a volcano and blown into another continent, or even turned into chocolate to be eaten? I love that. It was Christopher Lee Dracula. Doc Void, yeah, and Doc Void, please don't let perfect get in the way of good and finished. But yeah, that's our time. I will see some of you tomorrow at the Dev Q&A over the Atomic Think Tank. That's where the Zoom link will be. Which is it's gonna be a ton of fun. It's gonna be a really good discussion about some stuff that I've been working on a lot for the end of the year, and you're not gonna want to miss it. Otherwise, thank you everybody, and take care of yourselves. Take some time to play a game, and we'll see you back here in a couple weeks, because I'm not going to be here next Tuesday. Next Tuesday is Christmas Eve. Yeah, have a great stream, everybody. I'll see you all later.